So this is Charlie Brown at the New York State Military Museum. November, what's today's date? November 20th, 2007. 17, thank you, yes. Tell us your name.
My name is Charlie Brown, Charles A. Brown.
Charles A. Brown, what's the A stand for? What is
Arthur.
the A? Arthur,
Little
okay.
Arthur.
And when were you born?
Okay, August 17, 1924.
Really, where? Where?
Delevan, New York.
Where's that?
Well, it's south of Buffalo, I would say about 55 miles. Yeah.
Okay, and you grew up in that town?
For 13 years, I guess was it. Then we moved to Machias, which was about another 7 miles north from Buffalo.
Okay. And so where did you went to high school in Machias?
Machias, yeah.
When did you graduate?
When did I
When
graduate?
did you graduate high school?
Okay, 1943.
1943.
And, okay, 1920. I told you now. Okay, let me think. 1943 is
Right.
when I graduated from high school.
Okay. And how old were you then?
Okay, 18.
18, okay. And then what happened after you graduated from high school? What were you planning to do when you graduated from high school?
What were my plans?
Yeah.
Well, I was good enough basketball player back then. They were suggesting that maybe I could get into one of the colleges, and then I graduated, went into the service, and that kind of stopped that.
Okay, how did you end up going into the service? How did you go into the service? Were you drafted or did you volunteer?
Oh yeah, I was drafted.
You were drafted, so...
Uncle Sam said, "I want you."
And you went.
Yeah.
Did you get a notice in the mail?
Yes, I did.
Were you surprised?
No.
No, you kind of expected to be?
They expected, yeah.
Okay, how did you feel when you got the notice? How did you feel when you got the notice?
I was excited. I mean, everybody else was going to the service. I wanted to go in the service. I don't suppose if I didn't get a notice, I probably would have joined anyway. Really.
What about your parents? What did they think?
Well, everybody else was going in the service, and I don't think they wanted me probably to protect us, go over there to the country and try to stop them Germans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so where did you go for training?
Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And this is kind of interesting. Originally, I guess I told you guys, I really wanted to fly, and I was partially colorblind, so they wouldn't allow me in there. And then I got thinking, I think I'm going to join the paratroops. Well, I'm down in Fort Bragg, and we're on these speed marches, and of course we would run a short ways, then we'd walk fast, and then we'd run another distance, and then we'd walk. And I'd look back and I'd see these guys way back, and I realized they're trotting along. So we keep walking fast and then running and stuff. I look around again, they're closer. They finally came up, they passed us. I realized they were paratroopers. I thought, I don't want to get in there. So that's why I guess I was happy to get into the field artillery.
So you chose the field artillery when you were at Fort Bragg?
What's that?
Did you choose to be in the field artillery while you were at Fort Bragg?
No, just one day somebody sent myself and one other guy to Tennessee to join his outfit, and I didn't know who the outfit was going to be until I got there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got into
Okay.
the 258. Yeah.
And that was the outfit they sent you to?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what did you do after you went to Tennessee? Where were you in Tennessee?
I can't tell you because we were there no time at all. When we got there, I realized these guys were loading things in the trucks and all this sort of thing. And I said to one of the guys, "What are we doing?" And he says, we're packing up, we're going back up north, and we're gonna go home for Christmas, so this had to be sometime in November, I would say. And that's what we did, we just loaded up, and so I didn't hardly know what I was gonna do, you know. Here's I'm in an outfit for 3 months, and they're telling me we're going home for Christmas.
Right, and then after the Christmas, where did you go?
Okay, then after Christmas, we went to camp north of New York City. And I'm trying to think of the name of the camp, but we were there for I don't know how long, and that's when we loaded up and came down the river in a, I was going to say canoe. Came down the river in a ferry, and I think I was telling some of the guys before, we pulled into New York Harbor, and here's the Queen Mary and the Queen Elizabeth. And right off, boy, guys, I'll bet you $10 that we're going to go on, you know. And finally we pulled in between the two boats. And we finally got on the Queen Mary.
Which one did you think would go on?
So quite a few guys won quite a bit, and quite a few guys lost quite a bit. But that's
now you had some stuff in here from those ships, didn't you? Where was it, Kenny? Some of this stuff, right?
yeah.
What are these?
Okay. We got on the Queen Mary, and right off we were appointed a place to sleep, and this is my sleeping quarters. And I think I was telling somebody, my sister lived in California, went out to visit her, now this is after the war, and I said, how do you like to see where I slept on the Queen Mary when I went across the sea? She said, I love that. So I took her to this room, and I said, that's where I slept for 6 days. That's nice, riding over in the Mary, 6 days. This is interesting. I thought maybe we would land in Southampton. We went to the west of that. We went up between, there's an island up there on the left. And England and Scotland was on the right. And we end up in Greenock, Scotland. And we landed there the 28th of January, so we were on the ocean for 6 days, which was pretty nice. We were there and stayed on the Queen Mary that night, got off the next morning, got on a double-decker bus, which I had never seen in my life, you know. Here's a kid from a small town, I didn't know from nothing. But we actually got on this double-decker bus, and I made it a point to go up and ride on the second floor up. And that took us to the railroad. We got on a train, and they took us down through Scotland. I mean, that's the only way you could go, follow the tracks.
Right.
But we went down through Scotland, down through England, and ended up in Abergavenny, Wales. And this is interesting to me. We'd go in at night, go in there and have a beer maybe, and it was all gone after that. There were so many soldiers, you know, one beer and that's it. But a lot of times we'd sit out on the front porch, the front thing. Be sitting there, you could hear the guys coming down the street, but you couldn't see them because everything was blacked out. And you'd hear a clippity-cloppity, clippity, and you knew they were Americans because, you know, we walking, we didn't care. That's the way Americans were. And then if you heard this, you knew it was British soldiers with their hobnail heels on. and you just knew that it had, you'd bet $50 with anybody, those are British guys coming down the street. Sure enough, when they showed up, that's who they were, the British.
How did the British and the Americans get along?
Good, but you know, I could see the guys, the British girls, here were guys got a little more money than the British guys, and I can see why the British guys would say, you know, those guys are taking our girls. So we got along all right, but they were a little jealous of we Americans. We thought we were pretty darn good, you know.
Uh-huh. So how long were you there? Were you do more training while you were there in Wales?
Oh yeah. Well, after we got out of Wales, we went back up into England, and I think for, seems like maybe a couple, 3 weeks, we helped build some buildings so that we get more troops in there. So that took maybe another month. And after that, we went to the Salisbury Plains, and that's where we were practicing our bit to fight, you know.
Mm-hmm.
We set up our guns and fired our guns and practiced. Then, like I said, gee, a couple more times we went north in England, and I can't remember what we were doing when we changed, but I do remember going on pass, and we went on pass to this is too bad I can't remember this because it's interesting. Okay, some of the guys went to Warrington, England, on pass, so they were called the Warrington Warriors. And the other guys were the Chester Commandos. And I was usually a Chester Commando because I met a girl up there. She's pretty nifty. You know, it's fun to think about those things.
Yeah.
I remember one girl I met, and she says, she was an English girl, and she says, now this is going to be a platonic, yeah. And I said, yeah, okay, no problem there. I mean, she was saying, we're just going to be friends, and that's it.
Now, when did you know you were going to go to France?
Well,
When did you find out that you were going to France?
well, we sat down in the southern part of England. I'm trying to think of the town. I can't tell you, but we sat there for the longest while, and they told us, they said, you try to get those tanks in there, they're going to pick you off like you wouldn't believe. So they just kept us back in England, and we just sat there and waited, twiddle our thumbs and do nothing. And finally they said, okay, it's time for, so they loaded us on, yeah. What kind of, well, anyway, they load us on things and the front end drops down.
Right.
Okay, there's the LST, but we went over on,
LCTs?
huh?
LCT?
Not LCTs, yeah, LCT, yeah. It was a smaller one. They had a bigger ones, and, yeah.
And the guns went separately.
And they dropped the front,
Mhm.
yeah.
And how, when you landed, the fighting was all over?
Yeah, they were still throwing shells in. I mean, there's guys working there, and they were just trying to rough things up so the guys couldn't work without looking around to see if a shell was going to come in. And but that's about all. There wasn't any rifle fire. But then I heard later that even on D-Day, going in on Utah Beach was easily done. Well, there was very few casualties. Much different than the other place, you know.
Now, what did you think when you heard the first shell being fired at you?
Well, you know, it's kind of, when you never had anybody fire at you before, it's a little, especially when you've got a few shells dropping in and exploding, it's scary.
Yeah.
And you almost get used to it, never quite get used to it, but later on you'll learn that if you can really hear a shell, you don't have to worry about it. The shell, they'll scare the daylights right out of you if they're going to land 100 feet or 200 feet or 500 feet behind you.
Mm-hmm.
There's quite a noise to it. And you kind of get used to that. The first time, the minute you hear any kind of a noise like a boom, you're on the floor. And, but it's interesting where you get to the point where you don't even worry. When you hear it, you know that thing's going to go over. It's the ones that you don't hear that really can put you under, And you just kind of get used to those things. They're always scary, but I'll tell you one time, and this is when we never got into Paris. We crossed the Seine River in, I always call it Mantes Gassicourt. And you can't even find that on the map anymore. You find Mantes, but I can't find the Gassicourt behind it. But anyway, we crossed the river right there, and then we went around the northern tip of Paris, and then we went straight north to Valenciennes. That was the very last town in France before we got into Belgium. And I can recall up near Valenciennes, we pulled in for some reason or other, and there was a French family. They came out to greet us, and so on, and we pulled in and was going to stay there overnight, and they invited me into their home, and that was kind of nice. They fed me some wine and tried to chat with. You ever try to chat with somebody that you that can be so fun. Really, it can be fun trying to figure out what in hell are they saying. But anyway, I get thinking about some of these things. We got, well, this is before we went to Valenciennes. We were just north of Paris, and there was a big railroad yard up there, and they had some of these cars. Two guys could, when you worked for the Paris Railroad, you could pump yourself like that. You had two guys on there, and you could travel down the track. So this one guy and I, we thought, geez, let's try that. So we got this thing on the thing that we were going. Well, then we got off that thing, and there was a tower, and I don't know what it was for, but it was just one of these things where you went up so many steps, and then you went up, and you went up, and you went up. And my buddy says, why don't we go up there and just see if we can spot any German tanks off that way? And so we mosey ourselves up to the top, and we're looking, and all of a sudden we hear a shell went over our head. Well, we still weren't real, happy with shells going over our head. But we heard the thing, and it was good. But man, that scared us so. And we thought maybe they saw us, so we're coming down that stair as fast as we possibly can. But I still remember getting on that little cart, and he and I were going. We never did see any Germans peeking out from that tower, but we made a fast trip down those stairs.
So after, where was it, Valenciennes, you said? Valenciennes? The town in France, the last town in France?
Valenciennes, yeah.
You moved into Belgium. You went into Belgium?
Belgium? You went to
Yeah,
Belgium?
we went into Belgium
Okay.
after that. And there must have been 24 towns we went. Yeah.
What is this?
Oh, yeah, this is something. Okay, now here's Belgium. See that booklet right
Yeah.
there? Here is Corset, yeah. Where am I? Okay, Cortessen, yeah. Cortessen, Belgium. This is where this guy, he was the mayor of the town. I guess they call him Guy Governs. And like I said, I think we told you earlier, or maybe you didn't hear, but we were deciding where we were gonna stay for the night, and we saw this house over there, a big house. It looked like it's battered up a bit from the outside. But we walked in, and the inside was just torn to pieces. He had a garage attached to the house, and in the garage was this, there again, a Cord, C-O-R-D, automobile. And you guys probably never saw one, but they are really beautiful, a beautiful car. When I was about 7 years old, or 8 years old, it's the first Cord I ever saw. Beautiful. Had the things coming out of the front of the thing. Well, anyway, this guy governed this mayor, really. He was the mayor of the Cortessen. He had this car, and he kind of sided in with the Germans during the war, and the people did not like him. So when the Germans finally left the town, got out before we came in, he went with the Germans. I don't know where, I doubt if he ever came back to that town. And the neighbors and people from all over town, they come into his house, smashed everything. Here's this Cord setting into the garage, and I don't know what they took, sledgehammers. They were just beating on that thing. That's how much they hated that guy. But anyway, I thought, I saw this in the house, and it's when he went to Paris, you know, and here's all his things that has to do with, here's stamps that to probably send home to his wife or whoever it was. And somewhere in here, they're not here now, but that's okay. I had his coat of arms. Well, somewhere around here. Yeah. That was his coat of arms. So he could sew them onto his underwear and whatever else he. But I thought I'd keep that, you know. I thought, hey.
Did you get a lot of souvenirs?
Quite a few.
What other kinds of souvenirs did you take?
Pardon?
What other kind of souvenirs did you collect while you were in Europe?
Any little thing that would remind me that I was there, you know. Yeah. I was a great hand for, you know, these big, I still got my bag at home that says 4202028, 420287, that was my serial number. I still got that bag. I had that thing loaded to the gills when I come home. In fact, I think I threw out some of my clothes so I could get my stuff. But I was a collector. And,
You have, you showed me some of the things you brought with you earlier. And I think got some photographs and stuff too. Like, what is that? Knife.
okay. My friend that was a farmer, the farmers didn't usually go to war, they didn't have to go in the army because they had to milk the cows. And my best friend was a farmer. And when I was overseas, he sent me this knife, but it had a different sheath than this one. And August 10th, 1944, when I was telling you I was in a, we were being bombed for, I forget what it says in there. It actually says hours, and it was from about 10 o'clock at night until 1:30 in the morning, and they just kept coming back. They dropped these anti-personnel bombs it would seem like 1,000. They'd start at the one end, and they just, you'd hear it going across, and I could just feel a goosebumps getting on my arms. I knew when they'd go over and then they'd just leave, and boy, you'd feel so much better the minute they'd already gone over, you'd already heard the things exploding out there, and you were still okay, no holes. So anyway, that was a real rough night.
And what happened to the knife?
Oh,
That
okay. I'll tell you, quite a few of my things got hit that night. And if you've ever seen any shrapnel, they're all shapes. And they'll be spinning like that. And had a piece of shrapnel come right down through here. This sheath is one I made, but you can see there's a little just slit right down through there, and it just took that sheath and ripped it right down through there. Well, anyway, we found a leather factory, and I took a piece of leather, and in my spare time, I made this sheath up. And you notice the good sign on there, it's been there for a long while.
Yeah, what does that say?
Okay, it says, made in Germany by a Yank. I want to let them know I'm an American Yankee, you know.
Why don't you go through here and tell us some of the stories about some of the documents and photographs that are in here. I see some photographs. What are these? Guns.
Okay, these are my favorites, boy. And I think we're back in Heerlen, Holland then. I'm not sure. But there's our little insignia that tells us we're to 258th Armored Artillery. Now, I always call us Armored Artillery because of the tank. But then you'll notice there's not an insignia on here. And I think this was a replacement tank. We probably had one knocked out then, and they give us a replacement because, see, there's nothing here, but there's the insignia right there. In some place, oh. Yeah. I mean, I used to pick up everything. Now, what else have I got in here? Oh, there it is. 258 Field Artillery Battalion Coat of Arms. Okay, and I've got written there, marched in Washington's inaugural parade. That's what it says.
Is that open today?
I don't recall that. Anyway,
It says 11.
this is interesting.
He's been through Saturday.
Now, there's a young fellow, I'll bet he's older than I am.
Why?
Well, it's closed on Mondays. Monday to Tuesday through Saturday.
Oh, that's right, today is Monday.
Yeah.
I turned it over like this, and we said, gee, that looks pretty nice.
Volunteer on Monday?
But that's really,
There's the outside of it.
I
what
know,
a difference.
Oh, yeah.
but do you take volunteers?
But we had those things on our shoulder patches a lot of times, on
That's all right, yeah.
our dress cap
Yeah.
up here like that. Well, I got so many duplication of pictures, it's pathetic, but that's Jimmy Lantier. He's the guy, he and I, on August 10th, we were in the same hole, and I didn't get hit, he got hit. And he was sent back to England, and he was probably there for a month. And then he came back to be with us. And this is what kind of bugged me when I heard he didn't get one of the battle stars because he was in England being brought back to normal. So like I said, I got 5 battle stars. That's what our other guys did, but he got 4 battle stars and a Purple Heart. And I thought, gee, the guy, he come back and he's fighting and he got a hole in his back. You'd think that, you know, he would get that star, but he didn't. But I enjoyed that. He was one of the guys I went to visit. The guy on, we did a lot together. The guy on this side, he was, okay, when I went to visit them, I was 79, Jim was 86, and Willie Townsend was either 90 or 91. And both of them were kind of losing it in the brain like I am now.
Was that the first time you'd seen them since the war?
First time.
How did you find it?
Well, I started using the information that they gave me, and I called and come to find out his son lived there, that place where, and he told me that Jim had moved to Florida. And then later on, I called Willie Townsend, and he'd lived there forever almost. And then I find out that both guys, that one didn't realize the other guy even existed. And they were so surprised to find out that they were less than 75 miles apart. Hadn't seen either one since the war. In 1945, 44 and 45, that was quite a thing. So my wife and I flew down and rented a car. Now this is comical, and I'm 79 then, and I still drive. So I still think I'm a pretty good driver. So, but anyway, my wife and I flew down and rented a car. My oldest daughter gave me a call and she said, Dad, I'm going to take the next plane I can get out of here and go down. I'm going to drive you around Florida. Then you can enjoy it. I said, stay home. She said, no, I'm coming down. So she flew down to Florida on another plane, and she did. She drove us around. I kind of enjoyed it. I could look and kind of enjoy myself. Mm-hmm. And like I said, at first I went to visit Jimmy Lantier. Willie isn't in this picture, so, you know. But anyway, I visited Jimmy Lantier first, and his wife had called me earlier, and she said, Jim, probably a lot like me today, you know, where you just can't, all you got is a blank. But she said, you know, it'd be so nice to have you come down. And like I said, if I didn't have that thing that gave all the addresses on and stuff, I wouldn't have found these guys. But it was so nice to go down and see 2 guys I'd not seen in probably near 70 years. Yeah. And, you know, there's the guy I was in a hole with back on August 10th, you know. Think about that.
Yeah, that's great. Was he surprised to hear from you?
What's that?
Was he surprised to hear from you?
Oh, I guess so. Yeah, they really were. I had letters from Jim, and he was a sharp guy, and a great writer, and I wish I'd have brought the letter, the first letter I got from him after I said that we were gonna fly down to see him. And we used to call each other bunker buddies. And, you know, I'm your old bunker buddy, remember me? And it was great, yeah. And then Willie Townsend was one of the, I had so much respect for that guy. I can recall he would write a letter to his wife every chance he had. And I can recall we were down in his cellar and he had a candle lit. He was sitting over writing a letter to his wife. And I had so much respect for that guy. Every chance he got, man, he was writing a letter to his wife. It's great, yeah.
Well, now back to these pictures, I want to ask
Oh,
you
here,
about.
I was showing the guys.
Oh yeah, what is that?
Maybe you didn't see it, but anyway. Now, you think, oh man, that's pretty. But you gotta turn it around to see the real thing.
And what is that?
That is the insignia of the 258. Right there.
Mhm.
That was us.
Did you have DUIs on your lapels? The pins with that?
I was trying to think, I think sometimes we had them on our,
Oh, you have?
the TAMs, you know, and you know, it's been so, isn't it awful, it's been so long, you just don't recall.
Now, these guys are both with the 258 Field Artillery.
Yeah,
So, do you guys still wear that?
yeah.
And in some sort, we'll
ASUs.
wear it on our dress uniforms.
Right.
We'll wear a pin up here
Huh,
on our dress uniforms.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I can't recall.
Now, what is it like meeting these young guys that are in the same unit that you were, knowing that the unit has almost a 200-year history, or more than a 200-year history? And you're a part of that, and these guys are, how does that feel?
I can't,
What's it like meeting these young guys that are part of the unit that you were with?
they look like pretty good guys, I'd want them next to my hole.
You got it.
You know, it is kind of nice if you really have a buddy and you know that he's gonna stick with you regardless, and you're gonna stick with him. Boy, you'll think about that if you ever get in a hole or try to get across the field or something, and you know, somebody might be shooting at you at the other end.
Now, they had you were giving them some technical information about these guns that you guys had. What kind of guns were these that the
Okay,
Foundations used?
these are the 155 millimeter guns that,
Are they towed?
yeah, it's over here, okay. But anyway, I've got some pictures of the rear end of the tanks, and these guns, you have to drop a spade into the ground, because when one of these things fire, the tank, if you don't have that spade dropped, the tank will actually jerk backwards. And if you try to fire the second time, it would be off somewhere, because when it landed, it would be a little bit. So we always have, that's why we couldn't compete with like a German Panzer tank. No way. We'd have to have some other thing hit them, because if we're already set up, they wouldn't have a chance with us. We got one good round off, but we couldn't have, I mean, the tank would move, their tanks would move around, and these weren't really made to move around a lot. Once you got set up, you stay there usually for a day maybe, unless you got chased out or something. And, but it was nice.
And what was the range? How far could they fire?
Oh my gosh, you can fire. I was trying to, I've got a picture in there someplace that was in the Stars and Stripes. I don't know whether you know about the Stars and Stripes magazine that came up. And we had the tanks rolled up on logs so we could throw it out. And I think we were the first ones to fire into Dusseldorf. Sure, I'm not sure, but I know there was one big city, and they said, just throw them shells into that city to let them know we're coming. That was so great. I mean, they knew we were never gonna back up. We were gonna get, had them things up on logs, I'm sure, so we could throw them farther. And by yardage, I know we could fire like 10 miles, something like that, but I don't think we hardly ever fired, a half mile, and a lot of time. Well, I'll tell you what, and I can't recall what they call it. We all had all these different things when we were firing at tanks. There was one thing, but a lot of times when there was nothing else, we would have the plane flying up above the front lines, and he would spot maybe tanks 5-10 miles away coming down the road. And what we would do, he would plot us a crossroad. He'd say, that's the crossroad I want you to try to hit. So while these tanks are 10 miles away, 8 miles away, we would fire a few shots to get our one tank to drop it right in within a few yards, and then we knew exactly how far the one tank would go. We'd add 12 tanks, and they would, I'm trying to think how they did that down, but they tried to get them to land like both sides of the road, and this plane would keep flying along, watching those guys come up through. When they got right to that road, we'd call fire. They're on the crossroads, and fired 12 shells at one time. And boy, a lot of times the guy in the plane, you could tell when they hit something. When we hit something, he'd say, "Ah, we just got something on fire, or a tank blew up or something," and it was exciting. But I think about that now, and I think that was exciting for us then, but I look back and think, geez, we just killed somebody, That's a bad thing to think about, but that's war,
And what was your job? What was your role in the fire?
All the time, after I learned that job, I started out when I was in basic training, I don't know what I told you, but I was a wireman. And a wireman is supposed to run wires between the gun batteries and the main battery, which our fire direction was in well, you know where they were. But that's what my job was supposed to be, running wires between, and the guns, back to where I worked. That's what my job was supposed to be. Well, anyway, you guys probably heard it, but I was in England, and I saw an advertisement on the board when I went to lunch one day, and it said that they were starting a new fire direction group. And I thought, man, that sounds exciting. And so I had to go down and take a test, and I passed the test, and so I ended up starting to train for fire direction, which is great. And my job always was to be one of the guys that talks to one of the, either A battery, B battery, or C battery. And I'd change off. One time I'd be on A battery for a day or so, and then But we had 24 hours, of guys sitting just waiting for something to show up so they could fire. But that was so interesting to me to learn. The one guy had a deflection fan, I guess that's what they call it, and had the maps, and we knew that the guns were aimed at that tripod over there. And we knew the distance from here to there generally. And we had a deflection fan, and this Jimmy Lantier would lay the deflection fan on this map, and we knew that the guns were aimed right at that position here. Well, then the pilot up there, he'd be over here somewhere, but he'd have a map, and he would tell us exactly, or as near as he could, where that road, that crossroad was. And so long before these tanks would get that crossroad, you know, we'd just have one tank, we'd fire a couple out, and he'd call back and he'd say 100 right, 200 over. And so we would compensate for that, call back to the 4 guns or 12 guns, whichever you want, and they would reset their guns, and they'd sit there until he would be flying along. You could still see those tanks coming up, or those truckloads of gas or whatever they needed. And he would let us know when those first tanks were at that crossroad. And he might even want it to be a time on target, where he knew how long it would take, we knew how long it would take for that shell to get to that crossroad. And maybe 100 feet or so before the first tank got to that point, we just sat here until it got, just about right on the spot, and then we fire, and you could either have 4 or 12 or 1 gun if you wanted to fire to hit that.
Now, how many rounds, you kept track of the number of rounds that you fired?
Say
You
again,
kept track of the rounds that you fired?
who keeps track?
You did.
Huh?
Did you had some paper here that showed how many rounds you
Yeah.
fired each day?
Evidently, somebody in each battery kept track, because we had to keep track. I just thought, you could get out of ammunition so fast, and we couldn't carry it on the gun like this here, that there was only 6 guys on that, and I'm trying to think how many shells. I think they could carry 10 shells, and that was it. And that was the M12 tank. Then we had an M30 tank with each M12 tank. The M30 tank had a machine gun, 50 caliber, usually on the front, and I think that carried, I'm trying to think how many shells, but it carried many more shells. And the M90 would follow the and always you had the main one with a big gun on, and you had this other one with extra ammunition, and you could carry, I'm trying to think how many guys, I think it was 6 guys on here. And I know there were 6 on the main, with the main gun.
What were the 6 on the main gun?
Okay, I gotta think about this. One was the commander, the second one was the driver, and the other 4 were just strictly handling the gun itself and getting the shells, the 100-pound shells, into the chamber and so on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see, the other photos you want to look at and tell us? If you think of things that he should be mentioning, let us know. Because I know we talked a lot earlier, and I want to make sure that we kind of get a lot of these things, these stories that you're telling about, what is that?
One thing I thought was
That's
interesting.
where the 258 was, right here, at that time, right there.
One thing I thought was interesting that he
I
didn't
can't
mention
see it.
is about how when they took shelter at a place that he learned to develop film, and they had all the stuff to do it from Kodak here from the United States.
Oh, really?
What are you saying?
When you took shelter at that one place and you learned to develop film,
Oh, yeah, we got chased into a, this was another time that they were throwing time fire at us. And had to get undercover somewhere. It went into a cellar, and I'll be darned if the guy was a photographer. And I had this old Argus C3, and one of the first 35 millimeters I guess they had. And I had some film that I'd taken pictures with. And I thought, geez, I hope someday I can get to learn how to develop those pictures. And so this Huffnagel that always could fix anything, like that guy right there could fix anything. He said, we went into the cellar and here was this stuff, and it had English, French, I don't know, at least you could read this stuff, so it was English, and evidently it had French, and German. And this Huffnagel said, shoot, we'll mix up some stuff if you want to develop the film today. And so he showed me how to mix this stuff up. He had developer, I'm trying to think.
and all was from Kodak here
Huh.
in Rochester.
Really?
But anyway, that's where I learned to actually develop film. And it was down in a German cellar. And then after the war, now this is interesting, after the war I was still taking pictures, and we were living in pyramidal tents, you know, where you get about 8 or 10 guys sleeping in it. I don't think you ever heard this, but slept in pyramidal tents, and I was taking my pictures, and we'd get this stuff, we had cots, and I'd mix up the developer, and then I think glacial acetic acid, I think, for developing the prints, and the fixer. And I'd be on the ground, and here's the tent, or here's the bed, and like I said, developer, glacial acetic acid, and other, throw my blankets over my head and onto the cot, and the guy, I couldn't see what was going on, so the guys would kind of count how long give it a little bit of light, and I'd stick it in there. And so some of the first pictures that I got, you'll see no white around the outside and so on, and you could always tell the ones that I developed. And that was so fun. I'd have about 3 guys with me, and they're telling, okay, you got so many seconds left or so. So quite a few of those films that I developed.
Oh.
This I took off a German, this I took off a German, but this is a French gun, so I think the German must have took it off a French guy, and I took it off the
Were
German.
these captured Germans?
Huh?
Were these prisoners that you took these from?
Yeah.
Jim, how many prisoners did you guys take? Do you know? Did your unit take a lot of prisoners?
You know, at the first, we didn't take a lot of prisoners, but if you look, well, I'm gonna give you this batch to read anyway. If you look farther in, we kept getting more prisoners and more prisoners, because it got to the point where these guys were saying, geez, I think I want to go home. I'm tired of this, you know, we're not going to win anyway. Well, then, of course, we got, and they would just come out of the woodwork toward the last end, and they were so happy to see us. I think that's pretty nice when your enemy just wants, man, I'm glad you're here.
So a lot of them were surrendering.
I mean, they were tired, and I can see their point. A lot of
And they
times
had-
when we fire at a bunch of them, I think, my gosh, those guys, I don't want to go home. I know Willie, my buddy that I said I went down to see in Florida, that guy loved his, I was just a young kid, and he was, okay, like I said, he must have been 31 when I was like 19. But boy, he used to write his wife, you know, and I thought, if somebody come up to me and said, hey, we're gonna send Willie home today to stay, or if you want, you can go instead of, I say, take Willie, send him home to his wife. You know? He was such a good guy. Anyway, so, and if you look up here, maybe you can see it, but it's a thing that, this thing is issued for German officers. Can you see it? It looked like a, it's not a swastika, but it's a bird.
The Reichsadler.
Huh?
It's called the Reichsadler, the German eagle. It's the
That's it.
the Reichsadler,
Yeah.
the German
Anyway,
eagle, the
that
crest
kinda
of
shows
the
you
German
it is
military.
Issued. Now, okay, like I said, that's the French gun, and I dropped it and pulled the end off, that broke the end off that thing that you could cock the thing with. I still got that at home, that little thing, and I thought someday I'm gonna try to get it. This thing down there, I hope before I die, I'm gonna give it to my grandson, her son. And that, my great-grandfather carried it in the Civil War. He had a rifle, but he had this little gun, four barrels, and when you cock the gun, if you pull the trigger, it would go off. You cocked it again, the striker would move to the next spot. Fire it, cock it again, the thing would move down to the next spot. 4 barrels. I looked it up one time, and it had to be made before 1859, because I don't know if you can read who the manufacturer was, but in 1961, 2 manufacturers got together and they changed the name here. So I know it's got to be about 1859 that was built. And like I said, my grandfather just carried that little thing in case somebody was right up that close. And my great-grandfather got hit at Chancellorsville. He got hit somewhere up here in the head. And he survived. I got a copy of a letter that 2 guys carried him off the field, had wrote to my great-grandmother, telling how they dragged him off the field, and as they were trying to get him on the wagon to take him to some hospital or something, he started to come to. And he survived that, and always after that, I've got pictures of him with his I don't know which eye, but always had a thing over his eye. And that's my great-grand. He fought in Chancellorsville. And it was I don't know how I got in this war, but it was 1862. And, okay, oh, I'm glad I got in there. What is a general, Civil War general that's got his arms?
Oh, Sherman.
No, Yeah.
No, it wasn't Sherman. It was
Oh, well, Jack.
Stonewall Jackson. Thank you.
Stonewall Jackson, the day that my great-grandfather got hit in the head, I think they buried
The arm.
Stonewall Jackson's arm. They had to cut it off, and down in Chancellorsville somewhere, they've got this, where they buried his arm, they've got a big cement thing. They don't tell them about that.
Dad,
So,
did you talk about Preddy at all? Did you talk about Preddy at all?
no, because I got something, should I say?
No, yeah, that's really important.
On Christmas Day, 1944, it was like 10 o'clock, 10:30 in the morning. All of a sudden, here's some, okay, not Focke-Wulf, well, not Focke-Wulf 190s, but,
Messerschmitt?
huh?
Messerschmitt?
Messerschmitt 109s showed up. And next thing you know, here comes some P-51s. They're flying anywhere from maybe 3,000 feet, which isn't very high, down to tree level. And they're going at each other. And we're in a Hurtgen forest, but we had, I'm trying to think, the 467th, that was a group that had half tracks with quadruple 50s on. They'd be setting out in the opening space. And boy, these planes are flying around. And all of a sudden, here comes a P-51. And I figured, I reported it, I thought maybe he was 300 feet in the air, but he had to be, now as I look back, maybe 500 feet, 600 feet. But they were just barreling. They were probably hitting 450 because they were fighting against the Messerschmitts. And all of a sudden this plane popped his hood off, rolled over, and like I said, at 500 feet, you just don't bail out of a plane at 500 feet or 600 feet. Out come this body, and we see him drop over in the woods. I don't know how far, maybe a third of a mile. And then I heard the plane for a minute.
All right, sorry about that. So
Oh, no
so you
problem.
saw the body coming out of the plane is where you ended up.
I'm okay. But anyway, I actually saw this plane, this pilot just go out. Well, we had a first lieutenant that was right around with us, and he says, you know, once it quiets down, after these planes get stopped flying around at, you know, a few hundred feet, he said, I'm going to go over and see if I can find out if we can find it and whatnot. And he was gone probably half hour. He came back, and he said it was an American major, and he said the chute wasn't deployed. In other words, the chute was never opened. And I thought, why would a guy try to bail out at that height? No guy in his right mind. Then I got thinking, he probably got hit. I knew that there was that one quadruple 50 over there. I swear he fired for 5-6 seconds. Well, anyway, the kid said he only gave it a blurb, but what I heard, and I bet that was the plane, that was the outfit that shot him down. So anyway, that's all I knew about this pilot. He was a major, and chute wasn't deployed. So in other words, and he must have been hit so bad that all he could think of was, I got to get out of this plane. And then he just rolled that, got that canopy off and rolled that plane over out he can. Well, I thought, well, I'll never know who that guy is. And I forgot about it. Well, then, years after I got discharged, I was at the Air Force Museum in
Dayton?
huh?
Dayton?
Dayton, Ohio. And when I walk in the door, I look and here's a big sign of this one pilot, and he's going like this. I start, and he's telling this other pilot, you know, how he did this. I start reading about him, and it says he was killed on Christmas Day, 1944. Yeah. I said, well, how many of our own planes do we shoot down on Christmas Day? I said, that's gotta be the guy that I saw shot down. Well, anyway, I went up, when I was still at the museum out there, I thought, I'm gonna go upstairs and see if I can talk to the guy, the curator, this head. And I told him my story, and he says, gee, he says, you better get in contact with, there was two different guys. And one guy's name was Joe, anyway, he was a cousin of this pilot. And so he gave me the guy, I'm trying to think of the guy's name, I can't think of it. Gave me a name that I should call to talk with this guy. Joe Noel was his name. And he had written a couple of books about this George Preddy already, because George Preddy was the top ace in Europe at that time, with 26 and a half planes shot down. And on June 6th of 1944, he shot 6 planes down one day. So the guy was well known, this pilot was well known. Well, anyway, while I was at the place there, he told me, he says, you can go down and buy a book that's already written for Major George Preddy. So I went down, bought the book, and I took it home with me. But I also, this curator gave me the guy's name and so on that I was supposed to call. So I was reading a book, and I got on the phone, I put the guy up, and I didn't get him first time. Well, I thought, well, I'll call him later. Well, I started reading the book, and in the book, a captain was writing how he saw this guy crash. I read that, and I thought, I'm not going to call him back, because I sure didn't see that, what this captain wrote. So I thought, I'm just going to forget it. Now, my brother-in-law was going through the town that this George Preddy lived in. And he saw all these signs about Major George Preddy. This is after the war now. And he stopped and he said, you know, I've got a brother-in-law that thinks he might have seen him shot down. And right off they said, oh, gee, you should call Joe. Well, anyway, Joe something. And so Johnny got right on the phone and called this Joe up. And this Joe says, geez, I want to talk to him. So within 15 minutes, I got a call up in New York State. and I had tried calling him one other time. And I said, you know, I tried calling, I didn't get you. He said, well, I've called you. He said, I'm calling you right now. I talked to your brother-in-law about 15 minutes ago. And he says, jeepers, I would like to hear your story. Well, I said, you know, I've read this book. And I said, after I read the book, I said, I can't have seen the same thing that this captain saw and wrote. And he said, oh no, we found out that that was wrong. That was another crash. And I said, well, I bought this book. He said, well, didn't you get an addendum with it? You know, And I said, no, I didn't. He said, well, maybe they took him out at the air place where I bought it and was supposed to give him back once the person bought the book. So I never got one. So he finally sent that thing, an addenda up, saying that captain that was a different crash that this captain had seen. And so we started writing back and forth, and he was asking, there was two guys who were writing this book. So both of them, I still got the letters. I've got, I'll bet you a dozen letters from those two guys. But he was trying, he says, can you give me some information, which directions they were flying and so on? And I said, you know, I said, here I am in the middle of the Hurricane Forest. It's a huge forest. I said, there's openings and stuff. But when you're watching for planes that are, enemy planes that are flying around, you don't want to be sitting there writing down north and south and west. I said, I was just watching those guys, and I'm in the middle of a forest. But he kept that, and he says, geez, just try to remember. And I did. I tried to remember. And he even sent me pictures. I told him where I was in the Hurricane Forest, generally, near this town. And he sent me maps, and I could recall different portions of, I just can remember seeing that area. But I finally wrote up some stuff, and I said, you know, I can't promise you a thing, because I just can't tell you. But I said, I'll tell you one thing. I saw that guy go down, and I'm sure that he was the guy. And I was telling about this first lieutenant that went, found George's body, and said that he was a major, and that the chute never was deployed. And they called me, and we wrote letters back. I've got a book. I got to show you that. If you've never seen, you guys never saw that, I'll show you. But I got letters back and forth. And I don't think that they were looking for the crash of that plane. And see, that's why they were trying to find out generally where I was. And they went, I don't know how many guys been over there trying to find that crash. And this probably was 7 or 8 years ago, I would think, that all this conversation went back and forth about. But I told him one thing. Oh, I'll tell you one other thing. At the same time, in the next village over, there was two soldiers that were up in the peak of a church where they got the windows, and they were just wasting time up there looking to see if they could find any Germans out there. And while they were sitting there, they claimed that they saw this P-51 come in and crashed. And then the guy that was writing the books said that they went down, and I said to him, I said, I guarantee you one thing, if they found that plane, they ain't gonna find a pilot in that plane. And I asked him, I said, did you ask him if there was a pilot in the plane? And he said, no, I didn't do that. I never thought about asking if the pilot was in the plane. So, but I finally just...
One thing we need to cover, did you talk about the calculations for fire, time on target and so on?
Yeah, I did, but you know, my mind is getting to the point where just don't... I try to explain where we put a deflector fan on and aimed at that point where our guns are pointed.
You did, okay.
Yeah, and then the pilot up there will tell us the coordinates where he's seeing the tank, whatever, trucks loaded with gasoline or whatever. And then Jimmy Lantier usually would be on that deflection fan. He would look and give us coordinates and how far it was out there.
Okay.
And then we would convert it into how much we'd have to elevate the guns and how much deflection they'd have to make in order. Then they could fire a lot of times. A lot of times they would fire someplace to get the guns to know that where they were going to fire.
Starting point.
It was going to, yeah. And That was
But
good.
that's what you did. You did a lot of the calculations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I did that for, and I enjoyed it, yeah.
okay.
So looking at the map, you guys moved pretty quickly. You were moving pretty quickly
Oh,
towards,
my God.
in the winter, late winter and
You know,
spring.
another thing I really enjoyed was, if you look at this here, if you start right at
Did
the
you write this?
beginning. Huh?
Did you write this?
No, they gave it to me, boy, that's written right from the,
Yeah, this is almost a day-by-day account.
oh, yeah, somebody must have kept track every day, where we moved,
You were part of it.
how many shells we fired, and whatnot, because you had to keep track, you could run out of shells real easily. And, okay, what else I can tell you? Something I was gonna tell you about. And, in there, also, it tells the very date that we end up changing from the 1st Army to the 9th Army. I guess you heard me say,
Yeah.
we're sitting there and we're still in Germany, I think. And the officers came up and they said, from now on, you're in the 9th Army. Didn't move a foot. And now, you guys know about our sister battalion, the
The
991st?
991st? Yes.
Yeah, they stayed in the 1st Army,
Mhm.
and we jumped to the 9th Army, not moving us. Yep,
So you said you worked with A battery, B battery, and C battery. So you weren't permanently assigned to one battery?
no, see, I was in a headquarters battery to begin with,
Okay.
and so many times the A battery guy would take that day off, I would take his place.
Did A battery, B battery, and C battery all move together? Or were they split apart on the map?
Most of the time, we were going down roads.
Okay. And all the batteries are together? All 12 guns move together, or?
No, I think you had A battery guns going, space, B
Okay.
battery guns. That's little things that I forgot.
Mhm.
Uh,
Did each battery have its own fire direction center?
No, we had a main fire, I mean, us, the three of us guys sat there, A battery guy, B battery guy, maybe I took B battery that day, C battery guy. Yeah,
Okay. There's one.
yeah.
Right. And then some calculated data.
That's some logistics to
separate
run the
trackers.
wires to.
I wish I could hear you guys.
I was saying it's difficult then. If you had one fire direction center, you had to run wires to Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie.
Yeah,
And if one of those batteries wasn't near you,
oh, yeah,
there's no way of sending them information.
yeah, that's true.
We
But
covered.
like I said, most of our batteries stuck fairly close together. We didn't have a huge pattern or, you know, and, but that's the way our fire direction was.
So just one. Yep.
Three of us guys, one guy for A battery, one guy for B guy, one, and
Wow.
each. And
That's
you're,
interesting.
and like I said, you wouldn't have A, B, and C sitting all in a row. You usually have one here, another one back here, someplace. I don't know who the guy was that would say, okay, you guys are gonna be here, A battery's gonna be here, B battery, I don't know. But that's the way we did it, yeah. But you see, you guys probably have much improved on so many things that, it's just like us, you know, just like me getting a Model T Ford and you guys having a, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the way we feel anymore. You're so far ahead of us. Today you can't hide. Back then, you could get behind a tree and do something once in a while. Yeah. It was different, you know, I can see that. But I know one thing, we all of our noses run together like this, like my nose is running right now.
Yeah.
I enjoyed this, I really have enjoyed talking to you guys. And
Well, it's been our pleasure
just
having you
my
here.
mind
Is
was-
there anything else you want to tell us? Anything else about any of these photos?
Well, like I said, if you read this
Mm-hmm.
and look at this, they better coincide.
Yeah. So where did you end up at the end when the war ended? Where was the unit?
Where, huh?
When you heard about the end of the war, the...
Well,
Victor,
we're up
you're-
on the Elbe River.
Uh-huh.
It's about 65 miles from Berlin, air miles from Berlin to
Mm-hmm.
yeah. What's the name of the last town? The town that you got?
It's on, yeah, it's in the chronological report.
It's, jeez,
It's all there.
yeah, I know.
Showing it back?
Magdeburg,
Magdeburg.
Okay.
This one right here, right?
yeah. And like I said, you'll find all those directions that we, yeah, tell us how many things we fired and,
So that you were in Magdeburg when the war ended?
pardon?
You were in Magdeburg when the war ended?
Yes, yeah.
And what did you feel when you heard the news that it was over?
Well, it was pretty nice.
Were you-
Yeah, but you know, every time I think of the Germans, you know, toward the end of the war, those poor guys, I mean, I almost felt sorry for them. For every shell that they would fire, we'd probably drop 10 or 20 back against them.
Mhm.
And it had to be rough on those guys. Good gosh.
Charlie, did you have any animosity after the war?
No, because I realized we'd get into these German houses and stuff, and you'd see where this letter was sent to them, and of course I couldn't read what it said, but I just knew that it said, you know, we're sorry, but your husband has been killed. And I thought, man, alive, those people are just like me. What the heck am I trying to kill them for? Yeah, and I found out some pretty nice people over there, right directly after the war. Yeah, it's amazing how a couple of guys can't put up with each other, and so they get the whole government into it, like we might get again if we're not careful, you know. Yeah, these guys, I look at these guys and I think, man, they're apt to, one of these days, you're apt to be over there doing the same thing, and you won't be able to hide. They can't hide anymore. I can get behind a tree or something, but or dig an extra big hole. But yeah, you know, I even think of my I've got 9 great-grandsons and 1 great-granddaughter. And I see them now and I think, man, I guarantee you that most of those kids will end up being in a war, in some kind of a war. I don't think things are gonna, when you see things going, you think, geez, how longer can it not start again? And I can recall the first day after the war was over, and man, this guy was saying, never gonna be another war. We've got it won, man. How many wars are there going on right now? Many, yeah.
Well, Charlie, thank you for your service.
Wow, thank you for thanking me.
Shut up.